Good morning, children. Today we are going to study about verbs and the kinds of verbs, that is, transitive and intransitive. Children, you all have studied about verbs in your previous classes. You all know that a verb is a action word. It is a doing word. Like if I tell you, children, stand, jump, clap, dance, all these words will make you do some kind of an action, and so they are verbs, that is action words, right? So a verb is a doing word. It tells what a person or thing is, what a person or thing does, or what a person or thing has, right, children? Now, you have all studied earlier that a sentence can be divided into two parts, subject and predicate. Today we are going to understand another concept. A sentence can also be divided into three parts. You have your subject, verb, and object. The person or thing which does something is known as the subject of the verb. The object of a verb is the person or thing that receives the action done by the verb. Here is an example. He wrote a letter. He, subject. Wrote, verb. And a letter will be your object. Another example. Rohan bought a car. Who bought a car? Rohan. So Rohan is your subject. Bought is the verb. And what did Rohan buy? A car. A car is the object in this sentence. Right, children? Rohan subject, bought verb, a car object. Now, how do we find the subject of a verb? To do this, we've asked this question, children. Who or what plus verb plus the predicate. Like Geeta plucks flowers. So who plucks flowers? Geeta. So Geeta is your subject. Before the verb, you are asking the question who or what in order to find your subject. To find the object, we ask the question what or whom after the verb. Right? There we were asking what or who before the verb. Here we are asking what or whom after the verb. Like Geeta plucks flowers. Geeta plucks what? Flowers. So that after the verb, when you are giving the answer to what or whom, you get your object. Children, there are two kinds of verbs, transitive verbs and intransitive verbs. Now, what are transitive verbs? Verbs that have an object are called transitive verbs. So, children, when we were doing those sentences which had a subject, a verb, and an object, those were transitive verbs, right? Because the verb had an object. I'll give you some examples. The farmer grew crops. So the farmer is your subject, grew is your verb, and crops is your object. What did the farmer grow? Crops. Who grew crops? The farmer. The boy flew a kite. Who flew a kite? The boy. What did the boy fly? A kite. So you have your subject and you have your object. Ruchi baked a cake. Who baked a cake? Ruchi, subject. What did Ruchi bake? A cake, object. And baked is your verb. She is buying fruits. Who is buying fruits? She. What is she buying? Fruits. So she, subject, is buying your verb, and fruits is your object. So children, all these sentences you see, they have a subject, they have a verb, and they have an object. Such verbs are known as transitive verbs. I hope I'm clear here. Right, this is the tip of the day. To find the object of a verb, we ask the question what or whom after the verb. After the verb, remember this children, not where or how. So after the verb, you have to ask a question what or whom and not where or how. Right, intransitive verbs. A verb that does not require an object to complete its meaning is called an intransitive verb. Children, all sentences don't need an object. Okay, there are some sentences which are complete with just your subject and your verb. And those verbs, those sentences where you have no object, those verbs are known as intransitive verbs. For example, cats mew. Cats is your subject. Who mew? Cats. Mew, verbs, but there is no object. But the sentence makes sense. When I say cats mew, you understand what I'm telling you. It's a complete sentence. The sun shines brightly. The sun is your subject, shines is your verb, but brightly is not an object. And how do you know it's not an object? You ask the question. The answer is to, after shines, what will be your question? How does the sun shine brightly? How, not what. The baby cried loudly. How did the baby cry? Loudly. The birds fly in the sky. Where do the birds fly? In the sky. Children, these sentences are giving you answers to how and where. Okay, after the verb, not what or whom. So these are not objects. And when your sentence does not have an object, then the verbs that are used there are known as intransitive verbs. Understood? Right. So the cats mew, the sun shines brightly, the baby cried loudly, the birds fly in the sky, all have intransitive verbs. Why? Because they are not accompanied with an object. Okay. I hope you have been able to understand, children, what are transitive and intransitive verbs. Now let us test how much you have understood. There is a worksheet. Let's try doing it. My aunt is buying fruits. My aunt, you know, is your subject. Who is buying fruits? My aunt. What is she buying? Fruits, object. So this will be a transitive verb. Is buying is your transitive verb. The thief ran away. Intransitive. There is no object. Boys play in the park. Where do the boys play? In the park. Where? Where means not an object. Where and how, if you're asking these questions after your verb, then those verbs are intransitive verbs. Why? Because there is no object in those sentences. She is cooking vegetables. What is she cooking? Vegetables. What? Object. So, transitive verb. They ordered burgers. What did they order? Burgers. What? Object. Transitive. She writes neatly. How does she write? Neatly. How? So, intransitive. There is no object. Intransitive. Children, just remember those verbs which are accompanied by an object are transitive verbs, and those verbs which do not have an object are intransitive verbs. Here you have your answers. So the first sentence, my aunt is buying fruits, transitive. Proper sentence. You have, I mean, they're all proper, of course, but here you have all three things. You have your subject, my aunt, you have your verb is buying, and you have fruits, your object. So this is a transitive verb. The thief ran away. There is no object. So intransitive. Boys play in the park. No object. Intransitive. She cooked vegetables. You have your object. Transitive. They ordered burgers. Again, you have your object. Transitive. She writes neatly. No object, so intransitive. So children, I hope you have all understood that those verbs which have an object will be transitive, and those verbs which don't have an object will be intransitive verbs. Thank you, children.